Hello and welcome to the Tunnel Podcast. Delighted to say I'm joined by Tom Goffe again and Connor Chalmers to talk through the week that was and obviously look ahead to Munich. We are match day -5. Scotland have touched down in the land of Germany and Austrian border. So we're nearly there, guys. We're all but ready. Connor?
Absolutely, aye. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to Friday. And I think, going into it with hope rather than expectation. I think, it'll be the glamour occasion, won't it? It'll be the whole opening ceremony and all that sort of stuff. The Germans will be right up for it. An opening game on their soil. And I think we just have to go out and give the best account of ourselves possible. The friendlies haven't taught as much we didn't already know, but the one thing about Scotland that we have been quite consistently good at under Steve Clarke is showing up when the competitive games start and when it really matters. So I'm hoping that we can do that, but certainly looking forward to it all starting now, absolutely.
And Tom, a week tonight, England will be lining up against Serbia in Gelsenkirchen. We've got plenty to talk about there, maybe going into it in a better frame of mind.
Yeah, I think the England fans are probably feeling a little bit different to the Scotland fans. I think leading into that first game, after what took place in the last friendly game against Iceland. So I don't think the England fans are maybe as kind of infused as the Scotland fans might be about that. That opening game against Germany. To kick things off. So. But like you said, yeah, we'll get stuck into that a bit later on, I think.
As I say, plenty to talk about. Connor says not a lot has been learnt from the friendlies, but I think there's been one or two things that we can go through. So we will, as I say, go through the 4 games that were. We will look ahead slightly to what's going to happen as well. We're not going to go through play-by-play. I think you guys will be bored to tears with that by now. But certainly, as I say, we'll start with Scotland. Connor, going back to Friday night, the farewell at Hampden, the squad has obviously been announced prior to kick-off. Craig Gordon and John Souttar not being part of the 26, as it were. What did you make of that initially? Was that to be expected? Because I have to say, I kind of thought Steve Clarke was going to take the 4 goalkeepers.
Oh yeah, you had been saying that quite a bit, that you thought he might take the 4 goalkeepers. I'm glad he's not taking the 4 goalkeepers, because I don't believe you need them, and I'd rather have an extra outfield player in the mix that you can pick as an option. I think I'm delighted to see Tommy Conway in there. I know, Tom, you had mentioned Tommy Conway in the last pod, and it was a great shout. Obviously, Steve Clarke must have been watching. I think that's a real positive for us, because we've got stuck in this mire of the same attacking players over the Steve Clarke era. That's who's been our choices. And now when you see Shankland in there getting on the score sheet as well against Finland, which will do his confidence the world of good, and Conway coming in, and there's a couple of others who might consider themselves slightly unlucky to miss out, but I think ultimately, yeah, it was the right decision for Gordon and Souttar to go. I feel with Gordon. I mean, listen, obviously, being the fact he's an ex-Celtic player, and I'm a Rangers man, and just to rub it in, he's also an ex-Sunderland player. Well, I support Newcastle as well, so he's ticked all the boxes for me. But you can't deny he's had an outstanding career for the international team, and he's been part of some great moments in his time in a Scotland jersey. Obviously part of that 2008 squad that was severely unlucky not to qualify for the Euros that year, after getting done by a dubious referee against Italy. And he's, it's the longevity that he's had. I mean, 20 odd years he's spent in the Scotland fold, and I think, yeah, it is, unfortunately for him, his time is over, and the lack of game time domestically this season because of his injury, I think, showed in a couple of the moments he had on Friday night, if I'm being brutally honest. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, that I suspect we probably won't see him donning a Scotland jersey again, but he certainly leaves the international fold with our thanks, and and best wishes going forward, because he has been a pivotal part for many years.
Tom, I'll come to you quickly because it is something I wanted to touch on. You did sort of talk up Tommy Conway on the previous pod, being a championship guru, as I said, and also Lewis Morgan has come in from New York Red Bulls after the injury to Lyndon Dykes. So it does give Steve Clarke an option to play maybe wider, should we need to change things, later on in a match.
Yeah, like you said, I was surprised when you guys were chatting about the provisional squad last time round, and I'll hold my hands up that young lad Doak, I'd not even heard of him, so I'll hold my hands up. And I was just surprised, obviously, when you guys were kind of discussing him in detail, that he'd kind of got the nod ahead of Conway, who, like I said, I've seen a few times playing the championship. For a young lad, he's got a lot of experience. He's been scoring, goals regularly, a decent level of football. So, I was a bit surprised last week, they haven't made a cut, and it's obviously come about now. It's through injury, isn't it? Because of the injury to Dykes that he's now
Dykes
got
and
the nod.
Doak had to step out.
Oh,
through
Doak
injury.
got injured as well. Oh, okay, yeah. So but I think you're right. It could be a bit of a blessing in disguise, I think, in that you've got a player in there now he's still a young lad, but he's got some, like I said, experience playing good standard football. He scored quite a few goals last season for a half decent Bristol City team who comfortably finished mid-table. So I'm glad to see him. Like I said, I like to see championship footballers playing on international level and doing well. So I'm glad to see him get the nod. I'll be honest with you, Lewis Morgan, that's a name that kind of when you were sharing stuff on the the WhatsApp chat, like that was a bit of a blast for the past me. I didn't know where he was playing, so I quickly jumped on Google to see that he's plying his trade now in the MLS. I was intrigued to see kind of what you two, your take on him being called up. Is there potentially others out there who are playing, a better kind of standard of football, more competitive leagues than him, or are you guys happy to see him called up? Oh yeah, I was quite interested to see your
let's
take.
come back to you, Connor, on that, because Tom makes a good point there. Lewis Morgan had been left out since I think 2019, I believe, was his last cap. Do you think this is one because of the hour of which we needed to make the decision that Steve Clarke's called on someone that he maybe knows and can trust?
Yeah, I think possibly. I mean, for me, that sort of stuff only takes you so far. You have to pick players that you think are going to be capable of doing the job and are going to be the right fit. I mean, I had said prior in the chat to you, I had made the case for potentially bringing Ryan Hardy in. For Plymouth, I think he's been doing really well since he went down south. After obviously being at Rangers for a spell and then Livingston, and I feel like in terms of that goal scoring prowess at a more competitive level, Ryan Hardy's shown that a bit more for me than Lewis Morgan in America, because obviously you have to understand he's in a league that's still very much developing itself into a proper competitive league. They've got a couple of competitive teams down there, don't get me wrong. You've got the likes of LA Galaxy and your New York Cities and the Red Bulls and stuff like that. But for me, obviously having seen him play up here before he went down to America, he certainly was a cracking player, and he showed a lot of promise and ability. I wouldn't say I'm disappointed to see him in. I hope he does well, obviously, but I just would have been happier if we'd seen somebody like a Ryan Hardy get the nod over him, just purely because I feel he'd have been a better fit in the squad, really.
Well, just to jump in quickly, because the article I was reading, it was another name that was a bit of a blast from the past. Was there was Ryan Gould, who again's playing in the MLS, isn't he? He's the Vancouver, I think it is, Whitecaps.
Right, spot on, yeah.
And there was the article I was reading about Lewis Morgan's call up there was quite a few Scotland fans who were saying that they would have preferred Gould to maybe been called up instead of Morgan. And it was quite an interesting read, really. But what about yourself, Rob? What do you think?
Steve Clarke has used this inclusion, I feel, bat away the Ryan Gold talk, because the Ryan Gold talk, Connie, you'll agree, has been around for quite some time. Every time a squad comes up, maybe not so much in this campaign, but certainly in previous campaigns, Ryan Gold's name's been bandied about. Never in the conversation when it comes to the manager. People have said maybe he looks, unfairly upon the MLS. Well, they can't be doing that when you look at the past. Johnny Russell's been picked. I think Stuart Finley's been included when he's been playing MLS as well, if I'm not mistaken. And now Lewis Morgan's in. So I think, if you listen to Steve Clarke's comments, he kind of used that as maybe a stick to beat the media with, in terms of why he hadn't been picking Ryan Gold previous. But Connor, interesting, you mentioned, positivity and attack. I kind of felt like Andy Robertson and Kieran Tierney provided a lot of that on Friday night. It was really good to see Kieran Tierney back in amongst it, and he sort of brought a sort of a level of positivity and trust at the back for Scotland to build from.
Yeah, absolutely. He certainly did. And the thing is, there's no getting away from the fact that, we need Kieran Tierney and Andy Robertson to both be at it. If they have off games, then we tend to struggle a bit more and have off games, because they're the big two in our squad. There's no getting away from that. Andy Robertson's a Premier League winner. He's a Champions League winner. I think he's won both domestic cups down south as well. You don't do that in a Liverpool team under Jurgen Klopp if you're not a top quality player, and he is. Kieran Tierney similarly as well. He has been a key component for Arsenal. Obviously, he said his injury issues and things like that, which has sort of hampered him a bit there. And I think, from what I'm understanding, his future's sort of up in the air at the minute. I'm not sure if he'll stay at Arsenal or if he'll go, but whatever team gets him are inheriting a very, very good player. And the two of them, they complement each other really well, because they have that understanding. It's difficult to see because they both play on the same side of the park. Sometimes that can be a difficult balance to meet. Ideally, if you're going to have two wing backs of that quality, you want them in either side. That way, you've got it each way. But there's a trust and understanding between them, and they know if one's going to go and have a right go at it up front, then the other one can be trusted to sit back. And I thought Tierney in particular showed that in spades in the game at the weekend there. And I think, like I say, they're going to be key to us getting any success in these games, particularly with the creativity, because, we maybe haven't scored as many goals in recent times as we would have liked to, albeit, listen, we did get 4 in the last 2 games there. Yes, one was against Gibraltar, but I will point out that Wales failed to score against Gibraltar, and I think if there was a home nation you would comparatively look at us against, it probably would have been Wales over the course of the last few years. We've probably surpassed them now, but that's positive in and of itself. But in this competition, you need to take your chances. We were guilty of that in the last Euros, I feel, not taking enough chances when they fell our way. I know Tom might not thank me for saying this, but if we'd taken our chances at Wembley, for example, we probably would have got 3 points on the board, because England were off it that day. That was probably the one game you looked at with England in that Euros and went, they're not at it fully here, and we just didn't take our opportunities when they fell. So we've got to be able to do that, because you don't want to look back with regrets. And the fact is, if you can finish third in that group, you're in the knockout stage, and all you need to do that really is get 1 win under your belt. And we're capable, but it's that creativity, particularly from your Robertsons and your Tierney down that left-hand side, that are going to be a massive component to that.
Listen, I think a lot of people made about the quality of opposition in terms of Gibraltar, and when you look at France the other night, I think they played Luxembourg. It was only a 3-0 win. I think a lot's to do with that, maybe more sports science now and loading for players in terms of building up to these big games. I wouldn't read too much into that, certainly. But Tom, Connor makes a great point about Andy Robertson and Kieran Tierney, in terms of where they've played, playing at the highest level in the Premier League. Andy Robertson, in fact, just the other night became the most capped captain for Scotland, surpassing George Young's record that I think it stood for over 50 years. George Young, for people that don't know, was a right back for Rangers in the late 40s, early 50s, so that was quite a phenomenal feat for him. and certainly he's done that, distinguished in terms of performance and leading Scotland to 2 European tournaments now. So how much does Scotland need to lean on that in terms of the players that are playing at the highest level, and using their more experience, your McTominays, your McGinns, who we spoke about earlier on off camera, and these two in particular, Robertson and Tierney?
I think that's it. I was listening to TalkSport the other day, and there was Ali McCoist on there, and he was saying that the thing that he's most confident about at the moment with the current Scotland team is this: you have got a kind of core of players in there who they're playing at the highest level, like you said, Robertson. I know Tierney, things haven't really gone maybe the way he wanted at Arsenal, because he's obviously been on loan, hasn't he, this last season? Is it Sociedad? I think he's been on loan.
Yeah, he's out but, you're right, yeah.
But he's obviously been playing, he's still been playing at a top level. And then, the likes of McGinn, McTominay, you've got some real top draw players in there playing their trade at the highest level. And, I think that's what he was saying, was that he was kind of struggling to think back as to when you had so many, guys of that kind of caliber in the squad, in that first 11. He was kind of thinking back a bit as to, when the last time he could say that, they had a starting 11 as strong as they have now. And yeah, as an England fan looking in, I agree. I'm a massive fan of, you're talking about Robertson, massive fan of Robertson. I absolutely love what he's done at Liverpool. Again, he came from Hull. I remember he was, snapped up by Liverpool for peanuts, really, from Hull. And yeah, he's just absolutely flourished, hasn't he? And he's been, arguably the best left back in the Premier League, hasn't he, for, last kind of half a dozen seasons or so. He's been fantastic for him. And yeah, it's interesting hearing you guys talk about Tierney and Robertson, because for a while, I remember just kind of, again, as an England fan looking in, there was just that kind of, can the two fit in the same team? Because obviously Tierney is, his favoured position is left back also. And it sounds then from what you guys are saying that maybe Clark's kind of finally the puzzle, he's kind of got the pieces together in that. Yeah, Tierney's obviously now playing left centre back and Robertson's playing left wing back. I'm right in thinking that, aren't I? And that they're just really starting to gel alongside one another. Has he been playing left back for Sociedad? That was what I was going to ask you, Robert. Do you know, or has he been?
I am no La Liga expert. I think he was actually injured there as well during the period. So
he's been struggling for injuries there, has he, as well?
He has, I believe, yeah. So, but you can see the other night he stepped back into Scotland. It was almost like, and I'm not drawing comparison here in terms of quality, but Alan Hutton wasn't playing for Aston Villa. He would come to Scotland and it was like he'd been playing all season. So similar to Tierney, you can just tell when he pulls on a Scotland jersey and nothing else matters. So I think, as Connor says, really important, those two. But, and Connor, you touched on there about having maybe both or one on either side. Now, the right back position's up for grabs. That jersey's been left vacant due to injury to Aaron Hickey and Nathan Patterson. We saw Ross McCrory in the first game, relatively untested, and I don't think he stood out in particular. However, the other night, Anthony Ralston grabbed his chance with two hands.
He certainly did. There's no denying that. I thought he had a great performance on Friday night, and I think it's no surprise. He's stepped in before when he's needed to. Anthony Ralston, he's somebody that, let's make no bones about it, and doesn't make good reading for me. But he basically salvaged his career under Ange Postecoglou at Celtic, because he was on the outs there. He had been for loan spells at Dundee United, at St Johnstone, I think he was at one point as well, and had sort of mixed, successes when he was at both those clubs. And I think coming back to Celtic, the feeling would have been he would have been getting out the door, and yet he stepped up and ultimately has proven himself there, and that's earned him his stripes in a Scotland jersey. And I think what he brings is there's a fearlessness to Anthony Ralston. He doesn't mind taking on a player. Didn't care who you are, he'll try and take you on. As he did against Sunderland, he whipped a vicious ball across the face of the goal. It was just begging for somebody to get a touch. And, it would have been in the back of the net. So he's got that quality as well of delivery. And for me, I would certainly be starting him on that right hand side come Friday night. Personally, I feel like he's more than earned the right to have that opportunity. And as you say, it's difficult to Ross McCrory because he wasn't really tested enough against Gibraltar, and you're not going to be. It's an unfair game almost to try and judge somebody on, because you're going to dominate the ball as we did. They didn't really have many attacking moments in the game, so there was nothing for him to try and deal with. But I think, as I say with Alston, he definitely did have a bit more to do, and he stood up to it really well. And you need that for me. You need somebody that's got a bit of that confident attitude about him and has got a belief in their own abilities, which you can see that he's got in absolute spades.
I think, to the untrained eye, such as myself, out the two performances, Anthony Ralston sort of ticks the box in terms of hunger and desire. He just had that edge on Ross McCrory. So I think I'd agree with you. I'd be starting him in Munich come Friday's big kickoff. Let's push up further up the park, because there is questions to be asked in there. Scott McTominay obviously not seen any action in these two games, managing this injury and trying to make sure he's fit for the big one. However, Ryan Christie, who's come in, has looked busy, has added a bit of quality, and you kind of feel like, who's going to miss out there? Is it going to be Christie? Is it going to be McGregor? Because Billy Gilmore looks pretty much nailed on in there.
I mean, yeah. I think the reality is it would be Christie that would miss out, because McGregor's, you're not dropping McGregor. You're just not. That would be a bit of an insane thing to do, because again, that ability he's got and the leadership quality that he brings as well to the middle of that park, he knows how to just calm things down at the right moments and control moments in games that you need, and he's your man for that. So there's no way you'd be ripping him out there. Listen, Christie.
Okay. Let me just pause you there. Did he do that against Finland the other night? And if you look at the 180 minutes as a whole, Ryan Christie was pretty instrumental in both those games in terms of making stuff happen.
Yeah, it's a fair point. It's definitely a fair point. I think it's always difficult, because obviously you've got to look at the realities that Callum McGregor has played just about every minute of every game this season in a Celtic jersey. He had a brief spell on the sidelines, but he's more often than not been in there, and there's fatigue that comes into that as well. And I think, he certainly didn't do as much as you would have liked, by no stretch of imagination, in the course over the course rather of the 180 minutes. But I think with Christie, my worry with him sometimes, because I agree, I think he's had good performances there, but he's somebody that on occasion his decision making can let him down. Sometimes he can be a bit rash, and instead of trying to play just a simple pass, he'll try and overcomplicate it and go for the fancier. He'll try and have a dig for distance, which, by the way, listen, I'm not against doing that at times, because there's definitely a right time and a moment and a place to be doing that, because you can't pass the ball into the net all the time. I just feel, it's a flip of a coin, really, between which one goes. Personally, I mean, I don't see any reason why Scott McTominay should just be walking straight back in. I mean, if he's been nursing this injury and there's still, lingering doubts, I can't personally believe that we having just missed 2 games there and not being able to, get a minute on the park, that he's going to be 100% fit and ready to go for the game in Germany. And I would suspect that means he starts on the bench and then comes on.
Tom, I'll come to you on this, because I know you've had thoughts on Callum McGregor before in private discussions, and also you see a lot of Ryan Christie and Scott McTominay playing down in England as well. If you had to pick 2 from the 3?
Well, yeah, it's all I was saying to you about McGregor, because again, I was really intrigued to see you guys discussing who you thought were guaranteed starters, and when you said McGregor, I think we had a little chat on the WhatsApp group, didn't we, saying I was a bit surprised by that. Look, I haven't watched obviously anywhere near as much SPL football as you two, but I do like to watch as much as possible, and I always try and watch the Rangers Celtic games, obviously. And yeah, whenever I saw Celtic play, he was on more than one occasion he was not starting, and then when he was playing, and I was watching a game where he was starting and playing, yeah, he just didn't seem the player like that he used to be. He used. Go back a few seasons, yeah, he was, real influential figure for him, wasn't he? In the middle of the park. But yeah, every time I watched Celtic, there was just other guys who were, more influential. That Riley and the Japanese lad, and like I said, yeah, and he was on the bench. A few times I saw him, watch the game on Sky, and McGregor was on the bench. So yeah, that's all I was really throwing in there. Was I was surprised that you guys were saying, he's a guaranteed starter. The only thing I can think is McGregor's obviously he's more of a defensive midfielder, isn't he? Kind of sits and protects than Christie, who I feel is more of a number 10, isn't he? He's quite slight, isn't he, in his frame, and he's more of a kind of playmaker, I feel, in like sitting and trying to pull the strings and not necessarily kind of getting stuck in and protecting the defense and tackling. That was, listening to you guys, has Christie been playing more centrally then, has he? And
it's almost been like a diamond at times, isn't it? With McGinn as well. So listen, I don't think you say, Connor, how can McTominay walk back in? Well, all the goals he scored in qualifying would tell you that he would walk back in. I think he was tied with Mbappe for the most goals during the qualifiers. So that's something he'll be swaggering around the camp and reiterating, I think, from day to day. Just to finish up on Scotland then, Connor, it's the talk of the town, Lawrence Shankland. He finally got his goal, looked absolutely relieved, I must say, as he laid flat on his back after heading in from that cross from the left-hand side. Do him the world of good. I see he was also donning the number 9 shirt, having worn 19 in the previous match. That must have been left behind when Lyndon Dykes was left out. Do you think he's done enough to start on Friday night, or is it going to be Shea Adams? I know he didn't play any minutes on Friday night again, just giving a wee bit of rest.
Yeah, he was, and obviously I think he wanted to give Tommy Conway a bit of game time as well, and obviously did, although you have to say that goal Shea Adams scored against Gibraltar, he took that superbly. That first time volley pinged straight into the corner. And listen, that's the qualities that Shea Adams has got. And I've said that before. I think there's a reason he's in that squad, and he's a strong part of how we've managed to qualify, because even the little things he does, even if he's not scoring every game, he's always involved and he's always causing a nuisance for defenders, which helps your other attacking players get into those wee pockets of space. So he's very good at that, and his hold-up play is superb. I think, well, Lawrence Shankland's concerned, listen, delighted for him to get a goal. Obviously not his first Scotland goal. He has scored a couple in the past. And quite recent past, he salvaged a point for us in Tbilisi goals against Georgia with a
wonderful, wonderful moment, by the way. I must admit.
With another trademark header. I think that'll just, a bit of a puff of the cheeks here, and he'll be relieved that he's got that monkey off his back there, because I think slightly unfairly there was some people starting to get on his back when it came to Scotland. I think obviously, I know against the Netherlands he did have a big moment in that game which he didn't take, which, listen, that happens to the best strikers. Even R9 missed on occasion. It does happen. But I think it feels to me like Lawrence Shankland is going to be the man starting on Friday night, because it would be odd to me that you start him in the 2 games that we've had there, the 2 friendlies, and then don't start him against Germany, because to me you're doing that for a reason. You want to get as much game time into him as possible and get him acclimatised to the national team fold, because the plan's got to be to start him. I think he starts, and at some point I imagine Shea Adams will come on, but no, listen, again, it's one of these things. Friendlies it's difficult to judge a lot by friendlies. Certainly, if you get really bad results, then yeah, there's things you need to look at. But I think we've been, under Steve Clarke, really disappointing in friendlies over the course of his tenure. I mean, we've had 1 win in the last 8 games there, and they've all been in sort of, apart from I think 2 that were at the tail end of the qualification campaign that didn't matter because we'd already qualified. Once the pressure was off, it's almost like that release, and then they just don't, get to those levels and go through the gears. And we've played top quality opposition as well, which hasn't helped. So, look, I think clearly that is an issue that needs addressing, because you want to build momentum, and you can't keep playing poorly just because it's a friendly. The pressure's off. You should go into every game wanting to win it. But certainly, as I say, when the competitive stuff has happened and it's really mattered, there has been a gear shift, and we have stepped up to the plate. So the hope obviously is that we can do that, and I think that can help Lawrence as well, because if we're being honest, Robert, the service into him hasn't been great, particularly in the last couple of games, with the exception of the header he scored, and even in the Dutch game, for all the possession that we've had, he wasn't being afforded many real big opportunities. And as soon as he got one presented to him against Finland, he took it. And that's what you get with Lawrence Shankland.
Well, listen, the only podcast across the nation that would ever compare Lawrence Shankland to R9. That's what you get when you come here. Okay, then, we will part that. As I say, Scotland have touched down in, let me just say this properly, Garmisch-Partenkirchen, which is just on the Austrian-German border. It looks like something out of The Sound of Music. The Von Trapps would be very happy there. I do think some footage, actually, just before we came on air tonight, out of John McGinn, the squad had been welcomed with some traditional Scottish dancing and German dancing, and McGinn got involved, which is great to see. And I think he's going to be really important. You look at guys around the squad, he's one of them that doesn't need to wear an armband. He certainly keeps everyone going. So great scenes, certainly. Okay, then, on to England then. Tom, strap in, get ready. Let's go back then, because let's go back to Bosnia here and up at St James's. Things were on a real high. The England squad had been taken on the tour of the country to have their send off, one in the north, one in the south. St James's Park, parked to the rafters, and a kind of mundane 45. But the second half seemed to shift through the gears, and we got a glimpse at what England could really be.
Yeah, I thought, after the friendly, the first friendly against Bosnia, I felt, things were fine, to be honest with you. I think it played out as most people would expect, in that, the first 45 minutes, wasn't the best. I think, I'm just trying to think back, there was a few glimpses from Eze. I think he was probably stand out in that first 45 minutes. But it was pretty standard friendly stuff, wasn't it? And then, in the second half, England kind of went up into probably third gear and, turned it on a bit. We're passing the ball, a bit quicker through the lines. And, they won comfortable 3-0 winners come the end. And, it was afterwards. I don't think there was many England fans out there complaining about, what they're just, there's always going to be some moans and groans, but, with some of the new guys that have been called into the squad, got a run out. We got to have a glimpse of them. Like I said, we scored 3 goals. We won comfortably. Goalkeeper wasn't tested that much. It was a pretty standard, friendly affair, wasn't it? And then,
okay, let's pause there, because I think that's a great summing up of the game. So the positivity is high after this. Everyone's expecting.
Yeah, I think so.
Everyone thinks we took the right step. Box ticked, on to the next one. Then through the week, the omissions start to sneak out one by one. Now let's go to the James Maddison one, because that was the first, red flag, as it were. Maddison's left out, leaves the camp.
Well, you're right. It all just kind of went downhill from that point onwards, didn't it? And the kind of the squad, it got leaked almost, didn't it? The squad got leaked, and the kind of story that ran first was Maddison had kind of stormed, out of the training camp, and then it wasn't long before he'd kind of put some statement up on social media. And this is what I just can't get my head round, in that there's various things. The first one is kind of, how has it been leaked first and foremost? How has that information got out to the press and been leaked? But then, if it's true in what was said that Gareth Southgate had approached the guys that were going to be left out prior to the game against Iceland and actually told some of them, well, I was going to give you some game time in that game against Iceland. It just kind of beggars belief, really, doesn't it? It was just a bit shambolic, I think is probably the best word to describe it. And yeah, you it's just got everyone talking for all the wrong reasons, hasn't it? And obviously, not long after it was confirmed that Maddison, was going to be one of the players dropped. It was then confirmed that Grealish was going to be another, and again, that got the England fans, talking, hotly debating between themselves as to whether that was the right decision or not. Yeah, I just could not believe that all this was getting played out before that last friendly game against Iceland. I just kind of, I don't, my assumption
was that an own goal from Gareth Southgate in England?
I think so. Yeah, most definitely. My assumption is that that last game was going to be played against Iceland. Whoever was going to start and come on and play their minutes, and then afterwards, next day, Southgate confirms his squad. That's how I thought it was going to play out. So I was really surprised to see confirmation of the guys who were getting cut before that game. And again, I've still not seen any kind of clarification as to whether that was a leak or that was the intention. Was it was going to be confirmed before that Iceland game? Who was going to be left out? Just a mess, mate. 100%. It was a mess and not ideal whatsoever, because with England, as you guys know, there's so much circus, isn't there, when it comes to the media, in the lead up to these tournaments, and then all the way through the tournament itself also. And you just want to avoid giving them as much ammunition as possible. And yeah, as soon as this came out, they just had a field day, didn't they? It was everywhere. So yeah, just like I said, shambolic, mate, and not ideal preparation, I don't think. In the lead into the tournament.
I'll give you a refresh of the 7 names that were left out. So it's James Maddison, Jack Grealish, as Tom mentioned, Harry Maguire, Curtis Jones, Jared Braithwaite, James Trafford, and Gerald Quansah. Now, I'm not going to go through all the names. I'm going to come back to Braithwaite as well, but there was a tweet I saw that said, 20 minutes to go, I'm putting Grealish on over Bowen tomorrow, next week, next month, a serial winner, and just a different level of player to Bowen. Don't care what anyone says, this is a ridiculous decision. Now, you'd said on last week's pod, or should I say the last pod, that Jack Grealish was probably that these are the options of the names on the team sheet. But some England fans don't seem to share that opinion.
Yeah, no, listen, and I get that. I do understand that. For me, I just felt, and I'd still stand by, that Jack Grealish this season has not had a great season at City. He has been dropped repeatedly in big games by Pep Guardiola because he hasn't been performing as well as he could be. And I think obviously some of the off the pitch kind of stuff hasn't helped him either. And I just felt that it would be easy to drop. And to be fair, listen, I haven't watched both games that England played. Obviously, I watched the Bosnia one live. I caught up with the Iceland one later because it was on at the same time as Scotland, and I can't see what he did that would make you go, yeah, he's absolutely got to be on the plane. And this is the problem. I think, obviously, and it's where Gareth Southgate is maybe at times made mistakes, because for me, I look at England and I think, well, Gareth Southgate's been in charge now for 6 or 7 years. I think, interestingly, I don't know if you're into omens, Tom, but if England make it to the final, that would be Gareth Southgate's 100th game in charge of England. Right? Should you manage to get that far. But he's at this nature of chop and changing, and you bring in young players who are maybe playing well, just starting to play well, but haven't got that level of experience. Because, I mean, again, after the Iceland game, Declan Rice came out and said, we're a young team, I'm still a young man, and there's, so there's still that inexperience. Well, Declan Rice has got over 30 caps, so he should have enough experience by now that he you can't keep saying that, because Gareth Southgate's been saying we're a young team since 2018 before that World Cup, and you can't keep saying that. The problem is he's keeping it very young because he's bringing in, like, Kobe Mainoo, fabulous player, no getting away from it. He's a smashing player and has been for Manchester United, but he's a teenager. He's still a young lad, and this has been his breakout season. And I think it's massive responsibility to put on his shoulders to take him into that situation. Not that he doesn't deserve it, but I just feel those are decisions you can make to make life easier for yourself, instead of giving yourself that get out of saying, well, there's still a lot of young and inexperienced players in this squad. Because, well, yeah, that's because you keep picking young and inexperienced players when actually you want to get over the line. He wants to win this tournament, because by all accounts, and Tom, you might know this more than I do, but from an outsider point looking in, this would appear to be his last hurrah with England. It feels like he's probably going to go after this tournament, which I think is needed, because I think there's that refresh button needed as well. You can't have 7 years in the job. At some point, you need to freshen it up. So, look, that's probably my frustration when I look at England, is that part of it.
Just hold on a minute. I just want to come back to you with this, just to stay on Jack Grealish. I thought it was another pertinent point. Connor, you going on there about inexperience, and Amos Murphy, who's quite a renowned sports writer on Twitter, was just saying that Jack Grealish didn't deserve to go to Germany based on his form this season, but his profile is unlike any other in the squad. As dazzling as Eze, Gordon, and Bowen are, the game changers, not game winners. Slender lead with 20 minutes to play in a knockout game. Is Grealish you want? Is that something you can take on board? Do you get where he's coming from there?
I'll be honest. I think it was the right decision not to take Grealish. Look, I was just going to say, I'm not the biggest Southgate fan, but I'm going to jump in defence of him. I think the squad that he's picked is pretty much spot on. That's my opinion. I think the only player I was disappointed to see not included, and you touched on it just earlier, Rob, was Braithwaite in defence. That was the only player I felt was, undeservedly left out of the squad. I've honestly felt, in terms of our defence and the players in there and who he's competed with, I felt it was a bit harsh leaving them out. And I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I always think, if you can get a centre-back pairing, one right-footed and one left-footed, I think, it's maybe that's a bit of kind of OCD or something, but yeah, there's not many left. Yeah, there's not many left footers in that team, and he's been fantastic. And Southgate, this is where he doesn't do himself any favours. Sometimes some of the things he comes out with, I think when he was pressed about Braithwaite, he said something along the lines of, again talking about their experience and how young they are, etc. But then, Braithwaite, in terms of all those young lads that have been brought into the squad, before this tournament, I think he was head and shoulders above all of them in terms of minutes played this season in the Premier League. And in terms of clean sheets, I know Everton struggled, but they had a hell of a lot of clean sheets. That's what they kind of built their success from. Getting out of that kind of relegation dogfight was being solid at the back. And England's number one's Pickford behind him as well. That's what, all these things. That's why I was surprised. But that was the only one for me I didn't think Southgate got right. And I get it with Grealish. He has that, that kind of maverick about him, doesn't he? Where, even if he, like you said, he's not played particularly well, he could come on and just a bit of magic.
Which I think he done against Bosnia. I really do. I think he injected something against Bosnia in the last 20 minutes.
He did. But I honestly believe that there's guys in there, the likes of Eze, the likes of Bowen, who have just had much more productive seasons, who I feel are, capable of something similar of Jack Grealish in this moment in time. Let's put it that way. I agree with Southgate. I think, he was right in leaving him out. Again, I just think, so the thing that's annoyed me the most since Southgate, confirmed the squad, is that he can do, he can't do no right for wrong. There's been England fans have been screaming at him for years now to pick players based on form. And I've been one of them. Stop, picking your favourites. Pick players based on form. Guys who've been doing it in the Premier League, this season, recently, pick them. You got to stop picking your favourites and this, that, and the other. He's been getting that for, and the first time he's actually done it, people are saying, "Oh no, these guys, they ain't got enough experience. They haven't got enough experience. You got to get guys in there who've got, played more international football and have played in tournaments and this, that, and the other." He can't win. He can't win, and unfortunately, I just think that comes with being the England manager. Full stop. I honestly do. I just think whatever decision you make, you're going to get hammered for it one way or another. But me personally, sorry, Connor, go on, mate.
Just to ask quickly, because I agree with the points you're making. I think I think sometimes makes that word for his own back, because he does, whenever there's a poor result or somebody's had a bad performance, he'll always use that line of, we're a young and experienced team, we've got all these young and experienced players. And I get that. And I agree with you. I think the squad he has picked is pretty much the right squad to pick. But I just wonder, do you think is it maybe the issue with the blend that he's not getting right when it comes to between experience and youth on the pitch? Because I'm looking, for example, you mentioned Jared Branthwaite, and I agree, particularly if you're going to be missing Harry Maguire, I think I'd have kept him in. And when the inexperienced part, right, I've crunched some numbers there. You've got 4 guys who surely can help a Jared Branthwaite in these situations with Walker, Trippier, Stones and Shaw, who between them hold 234 international caps. Doesn't get much more experience than that. And I think that's, for me, it's that right blend that he's just getting that wrong at times, not all the time, but at times.
100%. And this is like, like I just said to you then, I think the group of players he's taken into this tournament is spot on, in my opinion. Or like I said, I was a bit disappointed Brathwaite didn't go, but I think, in terms of players he's taken, spot on. But then the next question then is, his starting 11 and who he picks, as in that first game, who he's, the first team is. That's where I then have got my concerns with Southgate, because I still believe that, I still have concerns as to whether he will pick that right team. He will get that mix right. He will pick players in their right positions and so on. And I don't know if you're going to move on to that, Rob, maybe with one of your, your later questions, but if you're asking me, do I think Southgate's made the right call in terms of that squad? Yes, I do think. Brathwaite's the only one where I thought he probably should have included him. Dunk, I don't rate Lewis Dunk. I don't get it. Brighton have shipped a hell of a lot of goals this season. They've had some spankings. And he's in the kind of latter stages of his career. I just don't get it whatsoever. And, I just don't understand why they haven't took Brathwaite, the clean sheets he's got. Like you said, he'd be playing with experienced guys around him. England's number 1 behind him, who he plays alongside every week, trains with every week. That's the only one I think I could say to Southgate, you got that wrong.
I think it's important to touch on the point you made about Premier League clean sheets this season. Brathwaite 12, his centre-back partner James Tarkowski, who's also eligible for England, 13. And then, Konsa 6, Dunk 6, Gomez 5, Stones 4, which just surprised me, and Gay 4 as well. Look, I don't want to sit here and spend the next half an hour talking about players that have missed out, but you could look at that Everton pairing. I know they were down the wrong end of the league, but they kept a lot of clean sheets, which seems to be a bit puzzling. But there you are. That's the way things go. And as you said as well, just to back it up, you're spot on. Kobe Mainoo, 24 appearances, Watson 16, Gay 25, Braithwaite 34. He was a mainstay for Everton throughout most of that campaign. So I think he is very unlucky, as you say, given Gareth's comments about players being picked. They need to have a bit more experience, but hey ho. Okay, then I want to just go more specific, because a man who I thought stood out in the first game was Trent Alexander-Arnold in that 8, and then we saw him come off the bench momentarily in the Iceland game as well. But what do you think was the contrast in those two? And I don't want to run Kobe Mainoo down. I know he's had a lot of bad press probably following that game, and wrongly so. I think really wrongly so. But Trent Alexander-Arnold was lauded for playing the other night. Liverpool fans saying, look, this is not something new. We've seen this throughout the season. Do you think that's going to be the way Gareth goes when he does line up against Sepa, that he'll be the mainstay in the middle of the park?
I don't know. I hope he does. I hope he does. Like you said, in that first friendly game against Bosnia, I thought he played really well. And like you said, he's been doing it for Liverpool. I know he's had a few injuries, hasn't he, over the course of the season? But when he's played in midfield for Liverpool, I just think that that Iceland game, it was annoying for me that he didn't get the chance to play in that role in that Iceland game, because I said to you, didn't I, in the chat, that I felt Iceland, in terms of how they set up, they were kind of got everyone behind the ball, they sat deep, and looked to hit England on the counter attack. that's probably going to be how, the majority of teams in their group, maybe bar Denmark, are going to set up. They're going to try and stifle England. They're going to sit deep. They're going to get 2 lines of 4, try and make things as difficult as possible, and take the opportunity on the counter attack or from set pieces. So I thought it was the perfect game really for England, but then I just felt he didn't pick the right players to try and tackle Iceland, and one of them being was Trent in midfield, because the thing I like about him is that his passing ability is just it's unrivaled in my opinion. He's so good, isn't he? His passing ability and balls over the top, long balls, strikers through on goal, but playing through the lines as well and out wide, and diagonals across the pitch. He's got the full range, and I just think he's got to play for that reason alone, because we're going to come up against these teams who are going to be sat deep. They're going to make it difficult for us to break down, and I just think Alexander-Arnold in midfield is exactly the kind of player you need. Declan Rice, he's going to start. Everyone knows Declan, and he's your engine, and he's the guy who's going to kind of, protect the defense and get stuck in and try and break things down and try and, pass the ball on to those more creative players as quickly as possible. But for me, you can't have someone like Conor Gallagher or even Mainu, I think, alongside him. I think you need someone who thinks more progressively, in terms of passing the ball, moving the ball forward. And, I spoke in the last video about Wharton. I'm really happy to see him included in the squad, but, he's only just been called up to the England squad. Trent has got a lot of experience. He's got a lot of England caps. He's a regular for Liverpool. He's won it all. He's got to start for me. I honestly, and I'm hoping, because don't read too much into it, but they announced the squad numbers, didn't they? And Trent got the number 8, and I'm just kind of, hoping that that's, kind of a hint as to what. Yeah, that's a hint as to what Southgate's, in terms of his role and what he's thinking going into this tournament. Yeah, I think he's got to start alongside Rice for me, 100%.
Connor, I'll come to you on this one. Phil Foden, again, another player who's got the world at his feet. I think he's won 6 titles for Manchester City at such a young age. He's so decorated, it's unbelievable. However, still yet to hit the heights with England, you feel, when you look at the game the other night. I know he fizzed one past the post in the second half, but does he need to take a little bit more responsibility into the tournament now and really start trying to make things happen in forward areas?
You're on
mute, mate.
I'm surprised it's taken as long as it has for one of us to do that. We've had a good run. Yeah. We've had a good run, haven't we, to be fair?
Yeah, that's a yellow card to me. No, I agree. I think Foden is somebody, he has to step up now, because the reality is, for Phil Foden, for me, obviously people keep talking about his age and stuff like that, but the reality is, he is now one of the more experienced players in that England team. He's got 30 plus caps for them, and he's getting 3 or 4 goals he's scored, which is okay.
Is that okay though? Is it okay? England are a massive nation. You look at the teams they come up against in qualification. Is 1 in 10 okay for Phil Foden?
Well, I suppose it depends. It depends when you look at just the teams that they come up against, the opportunities that will fall his way. I mean, listen, most of the opportunities that England get will fall more into their sort of your Harry Kanes or your Bukayo Sakas in this world when they've been in there. We can see them more clinical in that area. Don't get me wrong, Foden's extremely clinical for Manchester City when he gets those moments. And again, that's another thing where you cannot claim anything other than he's an experienced head. He has won a treble with Manchester City. Champions League finals, cup finals, getting over the line in league title chases. He has done everything there is to do at a domestic level already at his age. And so he does have to step it up a little bit more for England. What I would say is I always have some sympathy for the young English players like Phil Foden, because what doesn't help is the media coverage that surrounds it, because these players, they get hyped so highly at times in the media. I mean, Phil Foden in particular, they've been pouring over him for a long time about how he's world class player and he's all these things. And listen, yeah, he is a top class player, but he is not infallible, and he's still a young enough player that that's a lot of pressure to put on his shoulders when you do that. And I think they jumped to that too quickly. I mean, they've done it already this season, like you say, with Kobe Manu. They're already branding this is the next big thing. He is, absolutely elite level. But you're going, you just need to, you don't put that level of pressure on their shoulders, because whether they'll admit it or not, they will see that. Of course they will. They'll see what the media is saying about them, good, bad, or indifferent. And sometimes I think the media can be guilty of overly pressuring those England players. And I think maybe that's partly why he's maybe not had a better goal return for England. But certainly you can't fault his effort. He's been a huge component for them when he has been in the squad. I think he's certainly, you'd rather have a Phil Foden in there than not, put it that way. Although maybe you could argue he can contribute more goals into it.
Tom, you're going to come back in there.
Yeah, I saw a really interesting tweet after the game against Iceland, and someone was saying, and they were just putting the question out there, and I thought, I thought it made sense, was that, the way Harry Kane plays for England, does that have a knock-on effect to Foden, in that Kane, he always kind of drops deep, doesn't he? He drops really deep sometimes into that kind of number 10 position, which is, where Foden really likes to do his work, isn't it? Kind of between the lines, number 10, linking the play, getting in those little pockets. And, I'd never thought about it before, but then after I saw this tweet, I thought, you know what? I think this guy's got a good point, in that Kane, and he was doing it against Iceland. There was a couple of times where he was even picking the ball up, I don't know, a few paces from the centre circle. And, I think the reason why Foden is so fantastic for Manchester City is that, he's given that kind of license to do what he wants, but then he's got, just a goal scorer in front of him, Haaland, whose only, aim is to just get in the box, get on the end of things, and, make those runs, try and beat the offside track through the lines and stuff. And, and that's why I think Foden, is so fantastic for Manchester City. But I do think there's a different dynamic with Foden and the England team, especially with Harry Kane, in that, he very much likes to kind of get involved with the link-up play and sit a little bit deeper. And I think that kind of, I don't know, throws Foden off a little bit, And
Do you think it's stifling him in the sense that you say it's stealing his space?
I think so. That was the point the guy was making, that he's, is Kane stifling Foden a little bit. And I genuinely believe, he was making a valid point. And the game against Iceland, I know we lost, and, there was fans absolutely losing their minds, about the defeat going into the tournament and stuff like that. But, the starting lineup had Kane, Foden, and Palmer all on the pitch at the same time. Three guys who I know Kane's a striker and he scores the goals, etc. But three guys who were almost trying to do the same thing, link up play in those little pockets of space, and it didn't work. It was a bit of a mess, really. So yeah, I think Foden, Kane is England's main man, and he's Southgate's main man. And I think the team is built around Harry Kane. But I think Foden, I think it needs to shift. I think the focus needs to shift to play Phil Foden where he wants to play and build the team around him. I honestly do. I honestly think he's that good. I think he's ridiculously good. Yeah, you're right. He hasn't been as successful for England and as much of a threat for England as he has Man City. And there's got to be some sort of underlying reason there, hasn't there, as to why that is? Because he is a fantastic player, isn't he?
What you've said around the way he's being managed at club and then for country. If Joe Blogs can see it on Twitter, it's up for Gareth Southgate to see it as well. Just interesting, Connor, you'd said about the media and building players up and then shredding them down. Tom, you shared a great quote in the build-up to this pod from Eric Ten Hag after the FA Cup final. I'm just going to read it aloud. He said, you're very good here in England to push players and managers very high, and then you hammer them when they have one or two bad performances. And that seems to ring true, doesn't it? When you look at young Kobe Manu, who I think Gareth Southgate will look after in this tournament and protect, certainly. But it just seems to be that is the way, and Ten Hag's hit the nail on the head.
100%. I think the press in this country are England's worst enemy. I honestly do. Because of exactly what you guys have been saying, what Connor's been saying, the pressure the pressure that's put on those, young players first and foremost. We're always, whenever we go into these tournaments, we're always getting talked up as the favourite. Even when we're coming up against teams such as France, for example, who've won, tournaments of late with the same kind of core squad that they've got at this moment in time. And then, as soon as one of them puts in a bad performance, they just get absolutely hammered. Like you said, Mainu against Iceland, he didn't have a good performance. He was poor, but that was the first time I'd seen him actually put in a poor performance. Every time I've seen him play for Man United and England,
he's been
fantastic. He's been phenomenal, and he's got me really excited, just how effortless he makes it look for such a young lad. But yeah, he had a poor game against Iceland, made a couple of mistakes, picking up markers and tracking back and following runners and stuff, and he just got absolutely annihilated on social media in the press afterwards. And it's like, Jesus Christ, it's just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
Let's try and bring it to a close, because I'm conscious of time. I can see Connor almost nodding off in his chair there. Connor, is England's concern actually, as Gareth Southgate alluded to after the Iceland game, fitness of these players? Harry Kane's nursing what seemed to be a back injury that kept him out for Bayern Munich towards the back end of the campaign. Jude Bellingham, rumours have believed he's got a problem with his shoulder. You look at that chance in the first half for Harry Kane. I think Palmer whips it in, and Kane's literally on the 6-yard box. You'd put your house, wife, kids, the car, everything on that you'd find the back of the net, and he sort of blazes over. It just feels like everything's kind of going against them at the moment, and they're going to really need to turn that around come next Sunday and get a 3 points on the board and off to a good start.
Yes, mate. I think. Oh, sorry. Go on, Connor. Jump in, mate.
Sorry, I don't know who was asked the question there, because he never actually said. I think again, yes, it's a disappointment for them to lose against Iceland, who for whatever reason just seem to be a bit of a bogey team for England when it comes to these kind of fixtures. But you also have to recognise that England have found a way in the last 3 international tournaments to go deep into the tournaments. You're talking a final, a semi-final, and a quarter-final. They have done really well in those competitions. I think, to slightly defend Southgate a little bit, actually, I think some of the England fans and media out there have been unbelievably critical of a man who has literally achieved more than any England manager since Sir Alf Ramsey, who actually won the World Cup with him. I mean, Southgate has took them to, as far as he can, really, off the back of taking over what was a totally disjointed aging team who were basically just nowhere near good enough under Roy Hodgson into a force, into a team that people do sit up and take note and go, yeah, they could be favourites for this tournament. I think they'll be fine going into it. Look, yeah, there's niggles there and there's some concerns, but looking at the forward lineup England have got, really, they should have more than enough there to compensate, because you look at it, you've got Bellingham, Bowen, Eze, Foden, Saka, Watkins, Tony. These are quality forwards they've got at their disposal. I think the key is going to be utilising Harry Kane to the best as you can, but don't overexpose him, because the last thing England need, particularly in the first game, is Harry Kane goes out there and starts nursing that wee niggle, and then he takes a knock in the midst of that game, and it makes it worse, and you end up missing him for a couple of games. So I think it's just about the rotation, but I still expect England to get out of the group and to basically go as far into the tournament until they come up against somebody like France, where inevitably, unfortunately, they seem to come unstuck. But no, I expect England to do well and to go far.
Tom, final question to you then, just on Harry Kane, and as Connor said there, the plethora of stars they've got in attack, but an Ivan Toney and Ollie Watkins, if the worst did happen, match day 1, Kane's just ruled out. Have you got confidence that those two guys can step in and do the job? Because it seems to me, without a fit and firing Harry Kane, it could be a long tournament for England, or a short one, should I say?
Mate, I agree with you 100%. I was basically I was just going to say, if we've got a fully fit Harry Kane and Jude Bellingham, I can see us going far in the tournament. But if those two guys, are carrying knocks, they're not 100%, and then like you said, Kane more so than Bellingham, I think there's probably better cover for Bellingham in there, guys that can come in and do a job. But if something was to happen to Harry Kane, I think that kills our chances of winning the tournament. Let's put it that way. 100%.
Okay. Listen, okay, nice. We knows there. You got Connor back on side. Okay, I'm going to hand over to you, Tom, because you've got a wee little segment for this just to finish on as we head into the tournament. So on you go, my friend.
Yes, mate. So yeah, I just obviously the next vid we're doing is going to be after the opener. You boys obviously taking on Germany. So yeah, I thought it'd be a bit of a laugh to get our predictions in before, the tournament kicks off. So we can obviously have a look back at the end and see how bad we got it. So, so yeah, we'll start with you then, Rob. So the 4 categories were, who's your winner? Who's your top goal scorer? Who's your dark horse? So your country that you think, most people out there aren't expecting to do anything, but you fancy them maybe to spring a bit of a surprise, and then your player to watch, not your Mbappe's or anyone like that, but someone maybe not too many people have heard of, perhaps.
Okay. I gave this as much thought as I think it needed. So I've gone for the win. I've gone for the hosts, and purely based on that, Germany. I think when me and Connor done a podcast separate to this way back when the group was drawn, and we were actually rejoicing in the fact that we'd drawn Germany. They were out of sorts. Obviously not going to be playing any competitive matches because they qualified through being the host nation, but they seem to be a bit resurgent. Look at that one over France. Saw a bit of them at the weekend. Pascal Gross with a late winner against Greece as well. So I do think they're slightly sneaking under the radar with the likes of France and England per se. So I would go for Germany there. Top goal, I went for the man that we've just writ off, Harry Kane. I do think that he probably deserves a bit more clout than he's been given in the sense that he's been playing in Germany all season. He's been really, really good for Bayern Munich. I know they were unlucky not to win any trophies, dare say, but I think he's had a good first season in the Bundesliga. Dark horse. I was torn between two. I've gone for Austria because I believe they beat the Hungarians in a sort of a warm-up game not too long ago. So I've gone for Austria and the player to watch, Szoboszlai for Hungary. I caught a glimpse of him for his national team a couple of times during qualifying, and I think he sort of runs the show. They look a really good outfit, actually. I think that, they're going to push us in that final game. I don't really know. I've not seen too much about the Swiss, but in terms of the Hungarians, they're an exciting side to watch, especially in the final third.
Okay, nice one. Go on then, Connor. I'll move on to you, mate.
Well, I'm sort of off the hoof here, but I think. So my winner is going to be Spain. I think Spain are in scintillating form coming into this tournament. They've lost 1 from their last 12 games, basically since Scotland beat them.
I was going to say, who was that against?
In the Nations League. And I feel as if they're a youthful team. They've got a lot of younger players coming in there, but there's a bit of experience as well with like Borja Iglesias and stuff like that up front. They've got the young boy Paulo Torres, who for me is also a player to watch in this tournament. Seen him on a number of occasions during the Nations League campaign, and he just looks an outstanding young talent, I must admit. And I think he's somebody that will raise a few eyebrows throughout the tournament. My dark horse team, I don't know if this is slightly cheating, but I'll quantify it right. My dark horse team are going to be Belgium, and I'll tell you why. Because not a lot of people are talking about Belgium going into this. There's a feeling that the golden generation of Belgium has passed them by and their opportunity's gone. But just to quantify this, right, Belgium haven't lost a game since the 27th of November 2022, which was their second group stage game against Morocco in the Qatar World Cup. That's the last game they lost. They've had a few draws in there, including an exciting one against England as well. And they're in red hot form, and they're flying well under the radar, just nicely going about their business, ticking off these games. admittedly, the World Cup was a disappointing campaign for them in the end, and I think they might be looking to right some of those wrongs. So I think on the basis of that, and the basis that they are considered to be sort of past that golden generation, I think they are a dark horse team to really be keeping an eye on, and obviously top goal scorer. I was debating whether to go Harry Kane because it seems like the obvious route to go down, but I'm actually going to go for Kylian Mbappe.
Either or, either or, isn't it, Connor? Flip a coin.
Yeah, I'll tell you what my reason for that is, and Tom, I apologise in advance because you won't thank me for it, but it's simply because I think France will go further than England. And I think he'll do more
you'll
time.
wait and see what I say in a minute, yeah. So I'm in complete agreement with you, mate, yeah. Well, yeah. So I'll give you mine then. So I've gone for winners, France. I think England and France have got the standout squads, but I just think France have just got this winning mentality, haven't they? I know they obviously lost in the final against Argentina in the World Cup, but I just, Deschamps as well, he's obviously still in charge there. I just think, they've just got a better winning mentality than England have. And, they've just got, a ridiculous amount of promising youngsters, just a conveyor belt, isn't it? That just coming into that squad, to top up, the experience they've already got in there. So, yeah, I've gone for France to win. I've gone for, I was just tossing up between Kane and Mbappe. I've gone for Kane just because I feel like some of the teams we've got in the group stages, obviously there's a few question marks as to his fitness, but I think if Kane's fit, he's starting every game. I fancy him to score a few goals and put a few away. Dark horse, I think right. I've gone for Hungary. So I went for Hungary because they did really well in qualifying. I don't think they lost a single game in qualifying. I know they had an easier group than others, but not to lose a single game in qualifying. They did really well. And when I've seen them on, very few occasions I've seen them, but they just look to play, quite, entertaining, attacking football.
And it's quick. It's really quick in the field.
Quick. Exciting football, and not one of these who just kind of try and stifle teams and sit back. They look to take it to the opposition. And you mentioned your player to watch was, I always get his name wrong. Pronounce it for me.
I'm not sure if I'm going to do it justice now. Sabazlai.
Yeah, he's fantastic for him, isn't he? I was a bit surprised that he didn't do more for Liverpool last season because I was excited to see how he was going to do for them. But for Hungary, he's their captain. Everything goes through him, all the set pieces. He's their star man. So, and I know they're in the same group as you guys, but 3 can go through the group. So just bear that in mind. So, dark horse Hungary. Looking forward to seeing them play. And then player to watch, I went for the Ukrainian striker, Dovbyk. I think that's how you pronounce it. Who he finished top goal scorer in La Liga for Girona, who obviously surprised everyone. They finished 3rd, I think it was, to get Champions League spot. Fantastic season.
Is he a young player?
No, I think he's about 25, 26.
Right, okay.
But it's funny because I was just doing a bit of research on him, and he's been linked with Chelsea in the last few days, and I think it's one of the Milan teams as well. So, off the back of this top season he's had with Girona in La Liga, he's getting linked with some big teams. And Ukraine, I was looking at their group, and I think they probably got one of the I'm trying to remember who was in their group, but I think it was Romania, Slovakia, and Belgium. Callum was just mentioning. I think he could score a few goals and make more of a name for himself. So he's my one to watch. So they were my picks. So
we will put them in envelopes and pull them out in 4 or 5 weeks' time. Cheers for that, Tom. Appreciate that. Okay, listen, England touchdown base camp tomorrow. They've got to get this right. They're in, I think, just outside Leipzig. Quite far from the first match in Gelsenkirchen, about 220 miles. I noted down. So all to come in the coming days, weeks, as it were. Listen, we're back.
You're just enjoying seeing Gelsenkirchen because you've thrown it in there quite a few times across this.
It's a good one to rhyme off the tongue. It really is.
He's been practicing that all day, hasn't he? Yeah.
So England put up the first match this in Gelsenkirchen. And we'll be back a week tomorrow with the first of 6 scheduled pods for each individual match day. We've got some guests coming on as well. So really looking forward to what's coming. We'll split off into Scotland specific and English specific. Connor and Tom will obviously be involved as well. So listen, if you have watched or you are going to watch or you're watching in the future, like and subscribe, tell a friend. Connor, thanks as always. Tom, an absolute pleasure as well. And we'll see you again in the not so distant future. Cheers.